Rayan Altamari and Liyana Crestwell looked like the perfect newlyweds. But within days of their wedding, only one of them would return from their honeymoon alive. Liyana Crestwell stepped onto the honeymoon boat, believing she was with the man she could trust forever, only for Rayan Altamari to steer her into the deadliest waters of her life. When Rayan Altamari married Liyana, he didn't gain a wife, he gained a target. And their honeymoon became the stage for a planned tragedy. To the world, Rayan Altamari and Liyana Crestwell were the newest fairy tale couple, but behind closed doors, one of them had already written the other's final chapter. The case of Rayan Altamari and Liyana Crestwell shocked investigators across Dubai. A perfect wedding, a luxury honeymoon, and a bride who never returned. Liyana Crestwell spent her entire life dreaming of a wedding that would feel gentle, joyful, and full of hope. When the day finally came, she stood beneath soft golden lights in a Dubai villa overlooking the shoreline, wrapped in a simple gown that moved like water. Her smile seemed to glow as she walked through rows of family and friends, who believed they were witnessing the beginning of an extraordinary love story. The atmosphere felt warm, calm, and full of promise. No one imagined the darkness hiding behind the groom's polished exterior. Rayan Altamari looked every bit the successful and confident man he presented himself to be. His tailored suit, steady posture, and composed expression made him appear reliable and sincere. Guests admired how perfect the pair seemed together. Many whispered that their future looked bright, especially since Rayan had recently spoken about new business opportunities that were supposed to bring exciting changes to his life. Liyana felt proud standing next to him, convinced she had found someone who would support her, protect her, and build a peaceful life with her. Only Rayan knew the truth. His finances were collapsing beneath a mountain of reckless investments he had hidden from everyone around him. For months, he had watched his accounts drain, each failed decision pulling him deeper into panic. Instead of seeking help, he began designing a plan that he believed would solve everything at once. Liyana, kind-hearted and trusting, became an unknowing part of that plan. Just 3 weeks before the wedding, Rayan secretly took out a large insurance policy that favored him heavily. The documents were written in a way that appeared normal unless examined closely, and he filed them with a calm confidence that surprised even the agent who handled the paperwork. While Liyana chose flowers, dresses, and songs for the ceremony, Rayan spent his nights creating a different future. He studied travel routes, researched remote locations near their planned honeymoon destination, and calculated how much he would gain if tragedy struck shortly after the wedding. He practiced looking relaxed, smiling naturally, and speaking affectionately. By the time their wedding day arrived, he had become skilled at hiding the truth behind soft expressions and gentle gestures. As the ceremony continued, guests noticed how deeply Liyana admired him. Her eyes reflected excitement and trust as she stood at his side. For her, the wedding symbolized the beginning of a calm and joyful life. She believed Rayan's compliments, his promises, and his warm touches. Throughout the celebration, she moved with ease, unaware of the secret calculations unfolding beside her. The reception glowed with laughter, glowing lanterns, and music that drifted across the courtyard. People danced, toasted, and captured photos of the couple as they cut their cake and shared their first steps as husband and wife. Liyana's parents watched proudly, believing their daughter was safe in the hands of a responsible and successful partner. Even Marina Solberg, her closest friend, commented privately that she had never seen Liyana so hopeful. Rayan maintained his calm role flawlessly. He thanked guests, posed for pictures, and carried himself like a man looking forward to building a bright future with his bride. Inside, his thoughts revolved around numbers, timelines, and the insurance payout that he believed would rescue him from disaster. Everything felt carefully arranged, and the honeymoon, scheduled to begin the very next morning, served as the final piece of his plan. As the night came to an end, the guests slowly drifted away, unaware of the hidden motive beneath the perfect wedding. Liyana, filled with love and trust, stepped into a marriage she believed would be her greatest happiness. Rayan, keeping his secret buried deep beneath a well-practiced smile, prepared himself for the journey ahead. The celebration around them sparkled with joy, but beneath the beauty and warmth, a carefully crafted tragedy had already begun. The morning after the wedding arrived with soft sunlight spreading across the luxurious island resort, where Rayan and Liyana began their honeymoon. Liyana felt a gentle excitement as she prepared for the day. The ocean stretched out in calm shades of blue, and the warm breeze brushed against her face as she stepped onto the balcony of their suite. She believed this trip marked the beginning of a peaceful life with her new husband, and she carried that hope with her as they made their way to the docks. Rayan walked beside her with a composed expression, masking the calculations running through his mind. The resort was known for its clear waters, private beaches, and exclusive services that catered to newlyweds. Staff members greeted the couple cheerfully, offering congratulations and warm smiles. Liyana felt welcomed and relaxed, but she didn't notice the quiet impatience in Rayan's movements. He checked his watch several times, waiting for the moment he had arranged in secret. A boat operator named Omar Velin stood near the edge of the pier, polishing a smaller vessel that was not listed on the resort's official excursion schedule. Liyana assumed everything was arranged by the resort, unaware that the booking had been made outside normal channels. As they boarded the boat, the waves moved in gentle rhythms, carrying the vessel slowly away from the shore. The island behind them grew smaller, with each passing minute. Liyana admired the vast open water and pointed out distant reefs, colorful fish near the surface, and the impressive stretch of sky. Her excitement felt pure and innocent, and she believed she was sharing a special adventure with her husband. Rayan watched her quietly, keeping his expressions soft and controlled. Though inside he felt the pressure of the plan he had committed to, Omar guided the boat toward deeper waters, maintaining a steady speed. He was used to private charters, though he found it strange that this trip had been requested away from regular tourist routes. Still, the generous payment he received made him ignore his hesitation. He noticed how often Rayan glanced at the water rather than the scenery. Liyana, on the other hand, remained entranced by the beauty of the ocean. She leaned over the railing to observe the shimmering surface, unaware that they were slowly approaching an area avoided by most local operators. The deeper they traveled, the quieter the surroundings became. No other boats were in sight, and the gentle turquoise water gradually shifted into darker, colder shades. Omar recognized the region and knew that strong currents passed through it. He also knew local fishermen often spoke about sharks gathering near the reefs during certain times of the day. Liyana remained blissfully unaware of this and continued to enjoy the trip with a peaceful smile. Rayan kept encouraging Omar to move farther, his tone polite but firm. The sky began to dim slightly as clouds drifted over the sun. The water grew more restless, though still manageable. Omar felt uneasy but continued navigating. He occasionally glanced at Liyana, wondering if she sensed anything unusual. She remained content, taking photos and observing the unfamiliar shapes beneath the surface. As the boat drifted over deeper trenches, the water turned dark enough to hide movement from below. Rayan finally stood near the railing and studied this. The location matched the one he had researched late at night in the months leading up to the wedding. Far from tourist paths, with currents strong enough to make rescue difficult, and waters known for shark presence. It seemed perfect for the tragic accident he intended to stage. He calculated the steps in his mind, rehearsing his story for later. Omar eventually slowed the boat, waiting for instructions. He sensed tension thickening the air, but he could not explain it. Liyana, unaware of the unseen danger that surrounded her, leaned forward to enjoy the view. Within hours, only 2 people would return to the resort, and the seemingly perfect honeymoon would turn into a chilling disappearance that shook everyone who knew her. Detective Faris Dahan arrived on the island just after sunrise, stepping off a small transport vessel with a calm determination that contrasted with the panic growing among the resort staff. News of Liyana's disappearance had spread quickly, turning what was meant to be a peaceful paradise into a place filled with uneasy whispers. Rayan sat on a lounge chair near the shoreline, wrapped in a blanket and pretending to be exhausted from grief. His posture was slouched, his eyes red, but something about his expression appeared too controlled for a man who had just lost his wife at sea. The resort managers gave Detective Dahan a brief overview of the events reported by Rayan. According to the groom's initial statement, Liyana had been standing at the edge of the boat taking photos when she suddenly slipped and fell into the water. He claimed the waves were too strong, and she vanished within seconds. The story was tidy, simple, and delivered with rehearsed steadiness. Faris listened, without interrupting, but his instincts signaled that something felt wrong. The first detail that bothered him was the weather record from the previous day. A quick check with the island's monitoring station revealed calm conditions, with no significant waves or sudden shifts in wind. Nothing in the report matched a scenario that would naturally cause someone to lose balance so abruptly. Faris took note of this and moved on to the next piece of information. The boat docked. He located Omar Velin, the operator who had taken the couple out. Omar stood nervously near the dock, pacing in short steps. When questioned, he repeated the same details Rayan had provided, but avoided eye contact during parts of the explanation. Faris recognized signs of withholding, though Omar didn't openly contradict Rayan's version. Still, the detective marked him as someone who might reveal more with time. Meanwhile, Liyana's best friend, Marina Solberg, arrived on the island after receiving a distressed call from the family. She immediately offered Faris access to Liyana's private files and messages. Marina explained that Liyana had been worried in the weeks before the wedding, though she never fully understood why. Those messages showed a subtle but noticeable shift in Liyana's tone, expressing confusion about Rayan's behavior. She wrote about him disappearing during late hours, acting distant, and avoiding discussions about their finances. None of these concerns pointed directly to danger, but they painted a picture far different from the perfect marriage displayed on social media. As the investigation continued, divers were deployed to search the surrounding waters. The area was vast, and the currents made the job even more challenging. Hours stretched into days with no sign of Liyana's body. Just when the search seemed hopeless, a diver brought up a torn bracelet, one that Marina identified immediately. Liyana never removed it, and had worn it during the boat trip. The bracelet was found near a rocky section of the reef, known for attracting sharks. This discovery intensified suspicion around the case. Rayan's reaction appeared strangely mild. Instead of breaking down or showing emotional distress, he simply nodded, as if he had expected the outcome. Faris watched every subtle movement, building a theory based on each small inconsistency. Back on the mainland, insurance investigators contacted the team with another significant detail. Rayan had filed a large insurance policy on Liyana shortly before the wedding. The timing was suspicious, the amount unusually high, and the beneficiary stood to gain an enormous payout in the event of an accidental death. The combination of the weather conflict, the secretive boat trip, the insurance documents, and Liyana's messages created a web that pointed directly toward foul play. Though no one could yet prove what truly happened on the water, the evidence began forming a clear path. Detective Faris Dahan understood that the case was no longer about a missing bride. It was about uncovering a carefully planned act disguised as a tragic honeymoon accident. The investigation took a sharp turn when Detective Faris Dahan decided to question Omar Velen for a second time. The operator had been uneasy since the beginning, but now the pressure surrounding the case had grown. The search teams, the media attention, and the tight schedules enforced by the authorities were wearing him down. Faris watched the man's hands tremble slightly as he tried to appear calm. It became clear that Omar had not shared everything during the first interview. This time, under quiet but firm questioning, his resistance finally cracked. He admitted that Rayan had arranged the boat trip privately, insisting on a route that Omar normally avoided. The payment had been unusually high, more than enough to make him ignore several details that felt strange at the time. Omar explained that he was instructed to take the couple to an isolated location far beyond normal tourist paths. When Faris asked what exactly happened on the boat, Omar's answers were fragmented and hesitant. He said Rayan asked him to check the equipment at the back of the vessel shortly before the incident. From his position, he couldn't see Liyana, and by the time he returned, she was gone. He saw no struggle, no fall, only Rayan standing near the railing, with a distressed expression that felt forced rather than genuine. This confession changed everything. The deliberate movement of the boat into dangerous waters could no longer be seen as an innocent mistake. Faris began reconstructing the scene using maps, tide patterns, and footage captured by nearby research buoys. The data revealed that the boat had indeed traveled into a region with powerful currents and a high presence of marine predators. These waters were avoided by experienced sailors, and even more so by tourist guides. The decision to enter such an area could only be explained by someone who knew exactly what he wanted to happen there. Faris then reviewed the condition of the boat itself. A broken piece of railing had been removed and set aside by the resort staff. At first glance, it looked like an accidental break caused by corrosion or pressure. But a closer analysis revealed something different. The fracture didn't match natural wear. Instead, it showed sharp, uneven points that suggested sudden force had been applied. The railing appeared bent outward, not inward, as if someone had pushed against it from inside the boat. This detail pointed directly toward intentional harm rather than an accidental slip. While Faris continued assembling the physical evidence, a financial investigator brought forward new information about the insurance policy. The document had been filed rapidly and discreetly, only weeks before the wedding. The coverage was structured in a way that favored Rayan heavily under specific circumstances, most notably accidental death during travel. The amount was large enough to erase Rayan's financial troubles instantly. This discovery reinforced Faris's belief that the trip had been orchestrated with careful precision. As Faris pieced the evidence together, Marina Solberg provided additional insight. She mentioned that Liyana had become unusually anxious before the wedding, worried about strange late-night trips Rayan made under the excuse of urgent business. Liyana also wrote about feeling something shifting in his demeanor, though she never imagined danger. These notes became crucial in demonstrating that Rayan had been hiding critical aspects of his life. The most startling breakthrough arrived when a forensic analyst finished examining the railing fragment. They confirmed that the metal was bent by direct bodily force, not environmental conditions. The shape of the bend indicated a push strong enough to break a weakened section. This meant that Liyana had not slipped. She had been forced over the edge, combining Omar's admission, the insurance scheme, the unusual travel route, and the damaged railing. Faris finally saw the full outline of the plan. The honeymoon trip had been carefully designed, each element chosen to hide the truth behind a mask of tragedy. What began as a mysterious disappearance had now evolved into clear evidence of premeditated intent. The case was no longer just suspicious, was unraveling into a chilling example of calculated betrayal. Detective Faris Dahan moved quickly once the final pieces of evidence aligned. The confirmation that the railing had been broken by deliberate force left no room for alternative explanations. Every clue pointed back to Rayan, Altamari, and the facade he had carefully maintained since the disappearance was beginning to crumble. Faris knew that hesitation could give Rayan time to escape, so he contacted airport security and local authorities to place immediate restrictions on all outbound travel under Rayan's name. The net tightened around the groom, who had played the role of grieving husband so convincingly. Meanwhile, Rayan sensed that the investigation was closing in. He had expected questions, but he hadn't anticipated the thoroughness of the search teams, the persistence of the investigators, or the sudden appearance of evidence he thought would vanish in the ocean currents. He realized too late that the smallest mistakes, like the piece of railing or the financial documents he had rushed through, could betray him. In a moment of panic, he left the resort early in the morning and headed toward the airport, hoping to board a flight before the case could shift fully against him. His attempt failed. As he approached the departure gate, 2 officers stepped forward, halting him before he could reach the counter. Other passengers watched quietly as Rayan was escorted away. He tried to maintain an expression of calm confusion, insisting that he needed assistance due to trauma, but his excuses carried no weight anymore. By the time he arrived at the local station, Faris was already prepared with a growing stack of evidence that dismantled the story Rayan had offered since the beginning. The interrogation room remained silent as Faris laid out each piece one by one. The secret boat booking, the unusual route, Omar Velin's confession, the insurance policy, the reconstructed timeline, the torn bracelet, and the bent railing all formed a clear and devastating narrative. Rayan's rehearsed composure finally faltered. His explanations became tangled, inconsistent, and emotionally flat. His calmness dissolved into defensiveness, then indifference, and eventually resignation. He understood that the truth had become impossible to hide. The prosecution built a strong case. They argued that Rayan had suffered severe financial losses due to failed investments and planned to use the insurance payout to escape the consequences. The honeymoon location was chosen specifically for its remote waters and high risk, making it the ideal place to stage an accident. The bent railing proved physical force, and the absence of panic in Rayan's behavior following Liyana's disappearance confirmed the absence of genuine grief. In the courtroom, Liyana's family sat in quiet, heartbroken silence. Marina Solberg, her closest friend, attended every hearing, holding on to documents and photos that reminded everyone who Liyana truly was: kind, gentle, and undeserving of the fate she met. The courtroom became a place where her memory stood against Rayan's calculated deceit. Witnesses described her hopes for the future, her excitement for the honeymoon, and the trust she had blindly given to the man who betrayed her. The verdict arrived after weeks of testimony and forensic presentations. Rayan Altamari was found guilty of premeditated murder. The sentence reflected the seriousness of the crime and the coldness with which it had been carried out. The judge emphasized the careful planning, the financial motive, and the intentional deception woven into each step of the honeymoon. There was no doubt that the tragedy had been crafted long before the trip ever began. As the case concluded, Detective Faris Dahan released a final report that detailed the sequence of events from the wedding to the disappearance. The document highlighted the importance of scrutinizing sudden tragedies that appear convenient and emphasized the role of careful investigation in uncovering hidden truths. The island resort gradually returned to normal, but the echoes of the crime lingered among the staff and the guests who remembered the story. Liyana's family arranged a memorial for her in a quiet garden overlooking the water. They chose a place filled with light and gentle wind, the kind of space she would have loved. Her story spread beyond the island, becoming a warning about trust, manipulation, and the darkness that can exist behind an elegant smile. The case remained etched in public memory as a chilling example of a honeymoon turned trap, a life cut short by the person meant to protect it, and a truth uncovered only because dedicated investigators refused to accept a convenient lie.